Hi everyone, Mrs. Davis here, and I am here to kick off our ecology unit by talking about the levels of organization. So, ecology is the study of living things and how they interact with the non-living parts of their environment and the changes that occur over time when studying these interactions. Levels of organization is how we are going to organize all of the amazing life forms that we have on this planet. So, our planet consists of a wide diversity of life, and we organize this life using the levels of organization. When talking about the levels of organization, we are going to build from smallest level to largest level. So we can use the example of building a house. You're going to start with the foundation and build up to the roof. You don't want to start at the roof level, obviously, when building a house. So we're going to go from smallest to largest, the smallest being life forms that we can't even see with the naked eye, and then the largest level being the largest living thing is actually a fungus. It's called the humongous fungus, and it's located in Oregon. It's about 4 square miles in size. So, starting with the smallest level, we start at the atomic level with the atom. So all of matter is built off of atoms, as you learned last year in 7th grade science. And atoms are made up of protons, electrons, and neutrons. Protons and neutrons being the most massive part of the atom contained in the nucleus, and then the electrons are the ones dancing around the nucleus, and they form bonds as well. So an example would be oxygen or nitrogen, and these are elements along with carbon, phosphorus, that we talked about that are essential to life. When we have 2 or more atoms bonded together, they can form a bond either through covalent or ionic bonds. There are a couple other different bonds, but when talking about life, these are the main. So they're either sharing atoms in a or sharing electrons in a covalent bond, or they are loosely attracted in an ionic bond. Some examples include water and carbon dioxide. This is actually a water molecule because we have the red as our oxygen atom and the 2 silvers as our hydrogen atom. So that would be H2O. Now these molecules are used to make organelles. So molecules combine together to make organelles, which are the structures in a cell that are responsible for a single task or a specific task. So an example would be the nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes. They're all a part of the cell, and they all have a special responsibility to help the cell maintain its function. Cells. So once we have our organelles combined, we can have a cell. Cells are the smallest unit of life. So an atom is the smallest unit of matter, and cells are the smallest unit of life. Cells come in primarily 2 forms, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic means that there's not a membrane-bound nucleus, and eukaryotic means that there is. Our cells are eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are reserved for bacteria, and they are cells, no matter what type, are comprised of these organelles that have the specific functions. Cells combine to make tissue. So tissues are cells that are working together for a common function. You have skin tissue and muscle tissue, and we have to make sure that the cells are functioning properly so that these tissues are able to stay healthy and continue to work for the body. Tissues built together form an organ. So our heart, brain, lungs, liver, spleen, all of these organs are comprised of tissue. So the tissue was made up of the cells were made up of the organelles were made up of the molecules, and the molecules were made up of the atoms. So you can see how we're stacking those levels on top of each other. And now we have a more complex functioning organ as we continue to work our way through the levels of organization. Organ systems. So oftentimes organs work together in order to perform a function. And when organs work together, they are known as an organ system. So a specific example would be your digestive system, which requires esophagus, stomach, intestines, all in order to digest and absorb nutrients for the body. Once we have organ systems, we then have organisms. So organisms are made up of organ systems, they're made up of tissue, and they can be comprised of a single cell or multiple cells. So you have single cell organisms and multicellular organisms. Once we have organisms, now we start to organize those organisms based off of how they live. So a population is going to be a group of the same species of organism living together in one area. So a population means that these organisms are alike enough that they are able to mate and reproduce because they are the same species, and they are also geographically relevant to each other because they are living in the same area. A community is when we have many populations living in the same area and interacting with one another. So we have this example with the ducks in the pond, and there are many different living populations here. We have the population of plants, the population of ducks, the different insect populations that are located in the pond, the fish that are in the pond, the types of mosses that are in the pond. So you can see that there are going to be a multitude of different populations that exist in the same geographic location. So if the populations exist in the same area, then they're known as a community. They cannot mate with each other because they're not part of the same species. They are interacting with each other because they're part of the same community. An ecosystem. So an ecosystem consists of all of the living parts of the community and the abiotic or the non-living factors. So I could say that a marsh or a mountain is an ecosystem because it not only includes all the living things that we talked about when we said community, but now it also includes the water, the air, the rocks, the soil, the non-living components of the ecosystem. Ecosystems can be categorized by biomes, so large areas which have a specific type of vegetation, a specific soil type, climate, and therefore a specific type of wildlife are known as biomes. So biomes are still ecosystems in the fact that they have living and non-living components to them, but we're now talking about a specific region with specific characteristics. Examples could be a rainforest, desert, tundra. These are all examples of specific specific biomes. And all of these biomes combine to make our biosphere. So biosphere, as you remember, would be all of the living things that exist on the planet. So the prefix bio meaning life. So all of the life forms that stitch together to make our planet as unique as it is. To review, we start with our smallest, which would be the atom, and then we build our way to the largest, which is the biosphere. So we have our atoms that make our molecules. Molecules build cells, cells build tissue, tissues are constructed together to make organs, and then organs can make organisms, especially when they have complex organ systems. But remember, some life forms are just the cell itself. Organisms that live in the same area and interact make up a population. Different populations that live in the same area make up a community. Populations and that live in the same area plus the abiotic factors like the water, the air, the rocks, the soil are part of an ecosystem. And ecosystems can also be organized into biomes when we talk about a specific region and include the climate of that region. And finally, we have the biosphere, which would be the largest level because we are encompassing everything when we talk about the biosphere, everything that is life. You can go ahead and quiz yourself, list the levels of organization from smallest to largest, maybe come up with a mnemonic device that helps you remember this, and reach out to your instructor if you have any questions. Bye-bye.